Hey guys, so I'm about to install this rear sunshade on my BMW E90. Right now I removed the seat bottom there. I have folding seats, so I believe from what I read this makes it a little bit easier in terms of replacing the parcel shelf in the back there. I also had to remove the side bolster. This just pulls right out. The seat actually pulls right up on both sides, so you pull this side up, go on that side, pull that up, it comes right out and you slide it out. You have to snake the seat belts through as well. And for the side bolster, it just pulls right out. It connects there, connects there, and I think down here somewhere. It just pulls right out though, and it hooks probably there as well. I'm not emptying my trunk. I think a lot of people tend to do that. I don't think I need to for this. And I'm also not unplugging the battery right now because I don't really have anything other than the speakers in terms of electronics that I'm plugging out. I'll try to transport this bit here onto my new partials, onto my shelf there, because that doesn't have that. A lot of the times if you get one of these from a car without fold down seats, it's gonna lack this plastic trim there. But according to the parts catalog, it looks like it is something that I can remove and put on a different shelf. I'm gonna remove these things as well, the car seat anchors. And a lot of people say this is the thing, these are the things that give them a hard time. I actually have my rear sliding shade there. I may have to remove that just to get to that. And that thing I'm probably have to remove and transport to the new shelf. The speaker grills also give people a hard time because I think a lot of people worry about breaking clips. But I figured it out on this one. The clips seem to be, you could push this out from underneath so you could see how the clips are there. So I probably would pry here and here, and this is the beauty of having a shelf already out of the car, so you could see where the clips are. So it looks like that would slide in and then push down. So to remove this, you probably pry there and pry there, and it's really flexible. There's a screw behind that you remove, and then this pulls out in a very awkward way. I have to review that, how to do that, and that's pretty much it. And then the shelf should just pull right out. I do have to probably remove that seat bolster on that side there that I didn't do yet, so I have to do that side. All right guys, so I'm gonna get this done and come right back. Okay guys, the bolts for the speakers is either gonna be, you could use an 8mm, that would do it, or a 5 and 16. They both fit there. For the seat belt, the car seat anchor, I'm going to use a Torx 40 on a ratchet like this. It's very important. The size of this, let me zoom out. The size of this is going to be very important because it's such a weird tight angle. You have to get one of these smaller ratchets with like a little extension. Hey guys, so I've been away for about 30 minutes. I was completing my wiring. Added the correct 20 gauge wire to the OEM 20 gauge wire coming off the connector for the sunshade. So it's 20 gauge wire, and my reverse polarity switch, it's a really thick gauge. I think it's like 10 gauge wire. So hopefully that won't create an issue. The 10 gauge like almost a drop to 20 gauge wiring. And it's weird, the wiring I ordered on Amazon, it's vegan wiring. It's like vegetarian wiring. I've never heard of such a thing. I did manage to buy a console button panel, as previously mentioned in my other video, for the sunshade switch. It's the one right there in the middle between the thing that looks like a duck and a P. So I did get that, but what you need to buy in addition to that switch, for that switch to work with the shade, is a correct junction box that goes under your fuse panel, and it has a relay. Most auto accessories, the relays are either by the device you want to program or work, or it's usually by the switch and the switch panel. But BMW, for some weird reason, the relay for the sunshades is inside the junction box. Of all the things to get between the switch panel, the sunshade body, the JBE, the junction box with the sunshade relay is really hard to track down. It doesn't really have a parts number that tell you what's inside, and it's just a weird thing that's really hard to get. A lot of auto junkyards, they either toss it or just sell it with the fuse panel, not realizing how important it is for an accessory like a sunshade. So what I did was, what you could do to save a lot of money and time is you're gonna get something called a reverse polarity switch. It's like a winch switch, so if you want something to go up, it has a certain polarity. If you want something to reverse and go down, it switches polarities from the battery. So power, positive becomes negative, vice versa, depending on what you want to do with the accessory. One side will go up, one side will go down. This one is called a momentary switch, which is what I got. So you have to hold it down for the sunshade to go all the way up or all the way down. So basically a reverse polarity switch has the two leads that go to your positive and negative source. It could be either. It's not really definitive here for this type of switch. One could go to power, one could go to ground. But here I wired it so black is going to be grounded and red is going to go to something I bought. It's a piggyback fuse. So I'm going to hook this up to my fuse box and piggyback off of one of the similar amp fuses. So this will drive power to the switch, which will in turn, through 2 extra wires, will go right to the accessory, the sunshade body. The wiring for the sunshade accessory is 20 gauge wiring, and I did about 6 feet that way, 6 feet from the switch to the sunshade, and about 6 feet from the switch to where it's going to get power and where it's going to be grounded. Right now I'm just going to remove this deck. It's still in there. I don't like to remove the seatbelt anchor until I'm sure the new deck is ready to go in, because it's something you do not want to forget to reconnect these seatbelts. It's easy to like just they're there, it's dark, it's so easy to forget that. So that's why I saved that for last, to make sure everything so as soon as this comes out, the new one goes in, and clip clap, everything's back up together. One other thing I wasn't expecting was, I don't know what the hell that is, but these things were just floating up there. They're really loose, and I'm assuming I have to line up the deck with this. And when I put the child seat anchors, I have to line that up with that. That's might create a bit of an issue for me. I wasn't expecting that to be a free floating thing. Like, it's not connected to anything. So, but it looks like when I screw the child seat anchor into that, this will bolt it down, but it's just really loose in there. But that's a picture of the rear deck, how it looks underneath. It's a lot of foam material, a lot of soundproofing material. Not that the E90 is a quiet car by any means, but they put a lot of thought into soundproofing the back deck there, which is really cool. Again, there's not a lot of space to work. I'm not that tall. I'm 5'8", 8 inches tall, so I'm not having a hard time as someone that would be taller doing this. When you slide on the rear, see what I mean? That just comes, that's so loose. There are clips in here that a lot of people I've read forget to connect when the deck slides in. Connect that, or you're gonna have a lot of rattling when you hit when you go over speed bumps and stop. All right, let's get the deck off. So this is just a simple T50 Torx bolt. I have a long breaker bar because I think that's bolted in really tight. Once those 2 bolts come, the 3 bolts, I believe the 3rd seat belt is also anchored there. So once these 3 seat belts are removed, this deck comes right out. Put the new deck in, and then slide the seat belts over that. And that's it. That's the last look of that. Okay guys, this is the home stretch. Almost done. The shade is in there. All I have to do is slide this back and make sure it's clipped into this it's a ventilator panel there. This has to line up and clip right in to that, or you're gonna have, you hear that when you drive. One more thing is, I didn't realize how far back this was into the car. For some reason, when I saw this, I thought it was more like hanging kind of down there. So I'm glad I did my wires long. So if you guys gonna, either if you're not buying the wiring kit for this, just cut your wire really long. I cut maybe about 10 feet to the switch and about another 5 feet to the fuse panel. I'm actually dimensioned when I'm gonna get power from a fuse through a piggyback, and I'm gonna ground it right here with the ground. So I just didn't realize that that lead comes out. It's almost touching the glass. It's not as far back. Like when you see the pictures, you might think it's over here. So, and that's kind of actually where I measured my wiring from to wire it up. But I just always give it like an extra feet or 2 just in case. And this is one of those times where just in case kind of, you know, worked out. It's the end of the day. You've been working this for about an hour and a half. Make sure when you slide your seat belts back in there, it's straight. It's not like twisted. I know it sounds stupid, but it's an easy mistake to make. I didn't make it, but said and done, this is way easy. I've done my E36 years ago, and I've done my E46 rear deck. whereas adding a rear sunshade. And this was actually by far, I guess this is the first car with fold down seats. Having the fold down seats either make it really easy, or the deck on the E90 is much easier than the older generation BMW 3 Series. One of the best things about it, the clips are really sturdy. They use a lot of metal clips, especially in the C pillars there. It's all metal clips. And the plastic seems sturdy, like the speaker grill plastic. It's kind of a soft and pliable plastic. It's not like a hard, brittle plastic like the older BMWs. So I know putting stuff back in is going to be could be twice as hard. I guess the order of this will be to, what would I do first? Making sure the deck is slid in, connecting my speakers and screwing the speakers in, then going through and doing my child seat anchor. If you don't have kids, or you're not planning to have kids, you could buy plastic caps for this. They sell them at the dealership. I'm gonna link the parts number below. They're about $5 a piece or something. And if you don't want to go through the deal of like bolting this down, just buy the plastic cap and just plug them. Okay guys, the child anchor is a pain to get back. What I ended up doing is you're gonna use the reflection to line up. The hole is 3 holes that have to line up. It's this thing here, I still don't know what that does, but the open has to be facing you, the front of the car, and that hole has to line up with, you're gonna look closely, you see a hole in the reflection of your glass right there. It has to all line up. So I was feeling around first, it took me like a couple of minutes, but I realized I could look up there and line it up. And if it doesn't line up, it doesn't sit below the deck, and if it's above the deck, nothing goes back in. So I'm looking at my reflection to line it up. If you have a mirror, you could use a mirror. I don't know if your car is really tinted and you can't use reflection. And once that's lined up and below the surface like that, it can't be poking out, then this should just drop right in. But it hasn't been always perfect. There. So that was a pain. It took me about 20 minutes doing that one. And then I realized I could just look at the reflection up there and for guidance, because I was just feeling around my finger. Yeah, so it's not a hard DIY, but like little things like that just consume a lot of time. So I'm gonna just do the third one real quick. And so what I'm doing is I slid the deck back, make sure all the clips are clipped into that, because it will rattle. So I did that first. I did these next, only because I know how much of a pain these would be going back in, from what I heard from people. And also when I did my E46, it was so hard to put back in, I just ended up just buying the caps to cover it and deleting that child seat thing. And then last I'm gonna do my speakers and then the seat pillars there. So guys, I'm inside the trunk and I was right, the holes line up exactly to where the sunshade need to be bolted. So there's 3 holes. I would have totally missed that. Does anyone mention that in any of the DIYs? I never remember seeing this, where you have to bolt it from underneath. I didn't do this on my E46, so funny. And I used to have a lot of noise back there, like and what I ended up doing was just tightening some clips from above when I did my E46 rear sunshade retrofit. But I'm glad I caught this. I would have missed this completely. I didn't realize this, but this is so easy to do. The bolts line up, so I like that in this car everything lines up. There's no adjusting, there's no a bit of fuzz came down. Yeah, there's nothing extra. It's fairly easy to do this DIY, removing the rear deck. The only thing now is like whenever I want to remove the rear deck, I have to remember to unscrew these screws. And hopefully, I don't know if I should use Loctite. They might, with vibration, because they're screwed in. I don't know if they're locking in screws, but I'm gonna just come back and tighten. And that's another thing too, don't tighten these until everything's secure. So I'm gonna go do the speakers now and then make sure everything's in, do the seat pillars, and then I'm gonna go tighten all my bolts. So don't tighten anything until everything's seated. That was easy. Hey guys, I'm almost done. I'm just putting the last of the clips back in. There is not a lot of headroom, so if you have greasy hair, or if you have a lot of, like, I don't know, stuff in your hair, be careful, because you will be dragging along the headliner. And I have a light coat headliner, so just to give you guys a heads up, no pun, on that your head will be touching this a lot. Yeah, so everything's tightened up. I put the C pillars back in. Said and done. This was a fairly easy DIY. You could probably do this inside an hour if you have fold down seats. the hardest part was figuring out the child seat anchors. If you don't want them, like I said, buy the caps to replace them. And that's it. I'm gonna put the speaker grill back in, and everything on this side is fine. So what I did was everything was put together. I put these clips in, and once these clips went in, I went back and I tightened the speaker bolts and the child seat anchor bolts. I tightened those too. Those are really bolted in, so I had to make sure they're bolted back into specs. I don't know the torque on that, but you could just Google and see what the torque specs are for the child seat anchors. And that's it. Once the grills go in, I tested the speakers too. So when you screw the speakers back in, go to the front of your car, turn your car on, and do the fader left, right, rear, front, and make sure the speakers are working. There's 2 plugs for my speakers. I wasn't sure which one to plug it back in because they're identical plugs on the speaker. I did the one that I thought I pulled it out from, and it seemed to be working fine. And that's pretty much it. So my wire lead is coming out of there. Now it's gonna go to my polarity switch. It's so long, it's all the way over there. I do know the shade is working. I tested it. It all looks good. It's fairly easy to do if you have fold down seats. I'm gonna just bolt all this up and come back. The shade is back there on the deck. It just looks like a normal shade. You can just see the insert for the power blind. The reverse polarity switch is right here on the passenger side rear seat. It's a new box. Windy Nation makes this. Amazon sells it for about $20. It's fully enclosed. There's no worry about damage to the wire inside. I have my turquoise and blue wire here going to the sunshade accessory. So I have that running all the way back up the seat to the sunshade to provide the power up and down. On this side, I have my red and black wire. The black wire is that ground, is going to the ground nut that I showed you guys, that nut, that big bolt that's right there. It's grounded to that bolt. The power, to get the power to this guy is very interesting. What I did a piggyback to the fuse, so I didn't have to remove anything really. I just tucked all the wiring in along here. So the wiring is going all the way there. I just tucked it in through there to the front of the car. It's tucked in there, going up through there's a little hole right there. You can poke it through and you see the outcome of it. It comes out right there to where the fuse panel is, and my piggyback is right there. I believe I'm using a power folding mirror heated element for the mirror. It's a 5 amp fuse. I believe, I could be wrong on that. I'll screen cap if I'm wrong, but that's the fuse I'm using. It's been in the car. It's summer of 2021. As you guys know, I started this DIY. I finished this actually fall of exactly 2 years ago this weekend. So it's been in the car like that for 2 years with no issue whatsoever. It's that easy to do. Show you guys the so I can reach back from the driver's seat, and I hit my button to bring the shade up. So I'm gonna press the button there. Shade comes right up. And to bring it back down, I push this side of the button there from the driver's seat, and it'll come right back down. So 2 years of driving around with this thing in the car, I finally get to show you guys how it works. So my switch is back there, I'm driving, and I just have to reach back to bring the shade up. And shade is up, right? It's that easy. If I want to bring the shade down, I just reach back, still driving, looking out the window, and shade comes down. It's that simple. On the $500, easy. I'm glad I done it. I've been using it almost in the summertime. Yet to do the door panel shades. I'm gonna get that done maybe over the winter and show you guys that DIY video. I'm gonna put that up right away as soon as I get that done. All right, guys, see you in the next one. Bye.